Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Happy Monday. Let's start the week off right. A packed sports schedule today. Plenty to talk about for tonight and moving forward into week 15 NFL. A lot to go over there. So let's start though with some MLB news. We want to start peppering that into the mix for sure. So I'm going to bring in our MLB guys here, John and Jake. I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on this trade here. Shohei Ohtani going to the Dodgers. An interesting situation here because he's going to such a packed team already. So when you look at the numbers, technically, they probably don't look as dramatic as what his impact really will be. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Ohtani has finally landed largest free agent signing of all time. It's 10 years, $700 million, which is honestly just incredible. Of any of the major sports, it's the highest that's ever been given out, and by a large margin as well. But we, like you said, Mackenzie, the Dodgers are a very good team in the first place. We have them winning almost 100 games. So adding a guy like Ohtani, also, since he's not pitching this year, he's only going to be hitting. And as a DH, he's not going to be in the field. So that's a massive impact for a guy who's literally only hitting, especially if we look at the World Series numbers. They jump all the way up to almost a 20% chance to win the World Series. And season hasn't even started yet. And they have the Braves in their league as well. So just massive signing, even though he's only going to DH this year.
We actually have him as a pitcher and a hitter separately. So I ran this a couple days ago. Before the move went down, I ran a Blue Jay scenario and a Dodger scenario. This was the Dodger scenario, but I just put him in as a hitter. So next year we'll have his whole pitcher impact, but this is just as a hitter, and he's replacing JD Martinez. And JD Martinez is a good player, but even with the replacement, they get 2.8 wins better. So,
yeah. And the other thing to mention is, Ohtani isn't going to pitch this year. And the Dodgers have a lot of question marks in terms of Walker Buehler, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, all coming back from injury. So, they're going to be a little bit thin, but they all should be back by around playoff time. So that would be a huge impact in their win total as well. And it'll be interesting to see how those guys come back and if they're effective.
And I'm curious for futures and stuff like that. I know when we were talking about Juan Soto and the Yankees, how everyone just inflates their futures and there's not too much value as if they're, the Cowboys or the Lakers. Dodgers, is that a similar situation with being just as popular as a baseball team here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dodgers in general are also a team like that, but this is the lowest that you'll get in the terms of their odds. Like, don't go all in on them right now. There are tons of other free agents that still have yet to land. They could go to other contenders, and they will likely go to other contenders, especially in the National League, and that would make the Dodgers odds even longer. Also, even if the Dodgers play, this is expecting the Dodgers to play extremely well throughout the season and win the division easily and be one of the top two and get a bye. So if they have any, ruts or any slowdowns whatsoever, then you're going to get better value. So you do not want to take the Dodgers to win the World Series right now or any futures.
Well, so the odds when I put the Caesars odds in the database, I think their win total was 97.5. Now it's at 100.5. So the odds makers seem to agree with the 3-win impact here.
Okay. We love when we agree with the odds makers. That makes us feel better. All right. That's all we have right now for baseball. If you have any more baseball questions, feel free to ask John in the chat. But we're going to head into some Monday Night Football. We'll bring in Steven here, coming off that Ravens victory. How are we feeling about that, Steven?
I'm just glad I can still talk. I was oddly emotional. Yesterday was a very emotional day. For some reason, and all Ravens fans, Ravens Twitter are saying the same thing. It just hit us all so impactful. So anyway, that's how I'm feeling. I think I feel good, or I just don't know if I've.
It's been an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. All right.
Let's go to
move on from that. Let's go to work now. Here we go. We're going to start with the Giants-Packers game. I'm going to let you talk about this here because you know a lot more about Giants football than I do. But I do like the value here. We're looking at Jalen Hyatt receiving yards.
Yeah, so he's been Tommy DeVito has been a great story for the Giants, and he seems to have a little connection with Hyatt. another rookie. And Hyatt was a big play, obviously superstar at Tennessee. But he's had 14 targets in the last 4 games with 8 receptions. So that's an average of, 3.5 targets at 57% catch rate, which is very good for a guy with a 19.4 yards per reception number. So in our projection, we're projecting the same kind of Jair Alexander's out for Green Bay, which helps. And I think another starter or 2 on defense is also out. So what helps is we're projecting an average game, which is 3.5 targets and just a 30% chance that he has 0 or 1 catches. So with a 70% chance that he has 2 or more catches, at that yards per reception, it seems like a fairly safe bet at over 25.5.
Yeah.
And also both the quarterback, DeVito and Hyatt, are rookies. So they've been together since before training camp. So that's why you're getting good value with 2 players who have good experience together.
And I don't think Darren Waller will be back, even though he's eligible to be activated off the IR.
Yeah, not worth it there. Again, the Packers laying 6 going to New York tonight. That's all we have for this game. But again, if you have questions in the chat, keep them coming. I'll keep an eye out for them. Let's move over to the Dolphins-Titans game. We're going to that popular man. Well, actually, before we go to him, let's start here. We'll go with Derrick Henry's RB2 here. I like this play a lot here because he had a big week.
Yeah, so Henry has no injury designation. He was checked out for a concussion last week. And when he was out, Spears had 16 carries for 75 yards. And Spears averages nearly 5 yards per carry. Henry's obviously runs in tougher situations, loaded boxes, but he's low 4s the last few seasons. So I think the Titans, they should have beaten the Colts in their last game. And the reason why they finally realized they can't put too much on Will Levis's plate. So they ran the ball more than they passed. They ran it 41 times to 33 pass attempts, and that worked offensively. In the previous 4 games, they had passed it 123 times to 84 times rushing. So I think that they stick with the at least 50% rush, if not more. Try to keep that Miami offense off the field, and try to slow them down that way. So Spears, I think, as long as he gets 5 carries, which I think he could be in line for 6 or 7 after his bigger plays. I didn't go with the rushing and receiving yards because he is a good receiver. And so our receiving prop line was the same as the prop line there. So there's no value there. So I'll just stick with the rushing.
Okay. Good stuff there. I see questions in the chat, but I do see people mentioning Tyreek Hill primetime, again, going for those 2,000 yards on the season. So we do like him here to go over his 105.5 receiving yards. You can still find on ESPN Bet. We have him projected for 125.
Yeah, 125 is just like, I think, 1.5 yards more than he's already averaging. So that seems like a safe bet. Titans, they're already a pretty bad team on the road against the pass. They allow 8.5 yards per attempt. I think that's well over 1 yard more than they do at home. Nearly 260 total yards a game, and that's playing in a relatively weak competition this year. So when you're allowing AFC South and some of the opponents they've had, NFC South opponents, to average that many yards, that's not very good. Tua should have plenty of time. Jeffrey Simmons is out, and so I think that so Miami's been doing very well protecting Tua in the pocket at home anyway, less than 1 sack allowed per game. So this could be 0 sacks for Tua, very few pressures, and he doesn't need a lot of time to get it out to Tyreek Hill, because apparently people assume that Tyreek's not allowed to just run horizontally across the field, because it seems like, he takes around half a second to go 15 yards out, turn left, Tua dumps it into him on the run, and he just runs past people. So I think that's. And
we were having a conversation about this before. It's also, in order to get the NFL record, there's the yards per game record, which Calvin Johnson has at 122 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill's at 123, so he's going to have to have at least 123 probably in this game against a bad Titans defense. But also, he's on pace to get 2,000 yards. So instead of getting him in jet sweeps, they might do the little pop pass. It's the old Roger Maris, Babe Ruth debate, where Roger Maris got the home run record, but he did it in 162 games instead of 154, which Babe Ruth did it. So there's always an asterisk. Tyreek Hill wouldn't want to have an asterisk next to his name, so he's going to try to get it before the 17th game.
Right. And Derek made a great point here, comparing Jeffrey Simmons on versus off the field. When he's on the field, YPA 7.4 when he's off 8.7, and opponent completion goes up to 70%. So speaking of the topic of receivers for the Dolphins, let's take a look on the other side of the field at Waddle, plus money for his anytime touchdown prop here. Do you think we have any value here from the model with that?
Yeah, let me look it up. I'm working from home, so it's a little sketchy in terms of visuals, but in this game, again, bear with me. My hands are still quivering from the excitement of yesterday's game. I've still coming down. Jalen Waddle, we have only 0.37 touchdowns. So the line is what? So
plus
that would
120.
So that would not be good value. We'd want it at least 0.4, I would say, to go for it. Not horrible, but not the best.
Cool. Let's pivot back to the other game quick. This is a good question, and I don't know the answer to this, but Aaron Jones' status, looking at AJ Dillon here. Okay, so over 14.5 receiving yards. Does that seem like a good play here?
Yeah, it does. So with the projection, with Aaron Jones ruled out, I don't know if the lines have jumped. We should probably check that, but we have AJ Dillon at 18 receiving yards, and it may even be higher. I think that's even a little low because with Christian Watson out, there might be some more targets for even the running back. And then we also love his rushing yard line. We projected at over 70 right now. If you can get anything at 65 or below, then I would take that before it moves up.
Okay. Let's move over to Wicks with his reception line is 2.5.
We only have 2.2 receiving yards, but that's because he does a lot of work on his, that's probably, again, could be low as well. I know we like the over in yards, just not in receptions.
The best value for Green Bay wide receiver, I think, was Jaden Reed over 39.5 yards. We have 49. And I know he had 4 catches, but for like 18 yards last week, but he had 4 catches on 5 targets. And he might get some more downfield throws now that Watson's out. So that's a value play if you're looking at a Green Bay wide receiver.
I think the receiving yard line did jump, though. I see in the feed that we're getting, it jumped up to like 47.5.
Jaden Reed?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it at 39.5 like an hour ago.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Kind of my bad.
All right, before we move over to the NBA, I want to run through some Act Now Week 15 plays with Steven quick because these are important. There's only, I'd say, 3 or 4 right now with the steam. We're just saying if you do like these plays, it is time to act on them right now because the steam is coming. So let's start with the Bears headed to Cleveland. Cleveland laying 3 right now, and you think you want to act on that number now? We have a great value on Cleveland -3 here.
Yeah, it's not just because I'm a big supporter of former Raven Joe Flacco, but the Browns have been dominant at home. They're allowing, I believe, under 13 points a game, 6-1 straight up and ATS. Chicago's been really impressive defensively the last few weeks, but Cleveland, Flacco, he doesn't really care. He'll just stand there and chuck it. And the pass rush for Cleveland's been protecting him. He's only been sacked 3 times in the last 2 games as a starter, and he's not exactly a very mobile guy. So the increased pass rush of Chicago, I think they have around 11 or 12 sacks since Montez Sweat has gotten there, and basically increase their average to like 3 a game. That won't be as impactful, I don't think, to Cleveland. Jerome Ford, who missed some time, got hurt yesterday. He was cleared, I think. I just read that on Twitter. So there are a couple defensive concerns on Cleveland's side, which is what keeping the line a little tighter. But -3 implies that Cleveland and Chicago are basically just as good each other, right? That if you give 2.5 points for home field, and I think our model has Cleveland as at least a touchdown better.
Right. All right, let's move over quick to the Vikings going to the Bengals. Now, the Vikings beat the Raiders, I would not say impressively by any means. The Bengals laying 3.5 at home right now. But with Jake Browning's recent performances, you think the Bengals can keep catching some steam here?
Yeah, so I mean, apparently Joe Burrow isn't worth his his contract of being the best highest paid player in the league because Jake Browning looks pretty good to me. And the big thing is maybe Jake, in his all-knowing world, can add some insight about Chase Brown, I believe rookie running back who's the backup to Joe Mixon. since he's had serious snaps the last 2 weeks, he said he exploded for a couple big plays, had that long receiving touchdown yesterday. And it also seems to have sparked and opened things up for Joe Mixon as well. So Mixon's had 2 of his best games of the year. So the offense is cooking. It just seems like, as Burrow shows, when you have tremendous weapons and confidence, that can go a long way in this league. And so, and the offensive line is doing a better job protecting Jake Browning than they did to protecting Joe Burrow, allowing just a few sacks in the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. So we have this all the way at Cincinnati -5.5, and you can still get -3.5 at FanDuel.
Yeah, and it's FanDuel. It's not like some random book that we're trying to promote here. You can still find this out, a major book. All right, let's move over to a quarterback who should probably be paying more as well. Brock Purdy and the Niners going to Arizona. You can get them before that key number of 14 right now, still at 13.5.
Yeah, we like actually, we project the same amount of points, around 20.5, 30 points as the odds makers do for San Francisco. We have the value based on Arizona coming under. So no one's been able to run against San Francisco the last 2 weeks. It's something ridiculously like a 65-yard allowed average. And Arizona, as I painfully learned, when they can't run the ball, they can't score. And even they're besides Trey McBride, the tight end, the wide receivers are really producing nothing with Kyler Murray. And Marquise Brown demanded a trade from Baltimore so he could play with Kyler. And he's produced next to nothing in the 4 games that Kyler's returned. So I think that, and he hasn't played San Francisco in quite a while because of injuries. But Kyler Murray has not put up 250 yards in any of his games. He has like 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in his 3 recent games against San Francisco.
Okay. Good stuff there. We have one more game that's worth acting now on if you like the number here. The Commanders going to the Rams. Rams laying 6.5 right now. Again, obviously didn't win the game against the Ravens, but played reasonably well to make them have some steam go towards them.
Yeah, I think that the things the Rams did were really impressive. Remember, there's bad weather in Baltimore, and they came out and ran the ball 9 straight times right down the field with Kyren Williams. Since he's come back from injury, and I guess the team averages over 30 points a game with him in the lineup. And last 3 games was 30, 31, 36, and 37. Washington's last 4 opponents have allowed 45, 45, 31, and 29. That's since they sold off their 2 star defensive linemen. The Rams only allowed 2 sacks to the Baltimore Ravens, who are the number 1 league in sacks. And I think allowing 2 sacks to Baltimore will translate to allowing 0 or most 1 to Washington. On the flip side, the Rams only sacked Lamar twice, but Aaron Donald was getting triple teamed, and you still should have gotten him. And those moves that Lamar made to escape 2 or 3 sacks, Sam Howell will definitely go down. And so we're projecting at least 4 Sam Howell sacks by the Rams. So as it -6.5, I think it's going to move to 7, if not 7.5.
All right, let's hop on that while it's at 6.5. Here's a quick recap of some of these act now plays. If you do like these teams and you are on their side, this is probably the best number you're going to get because the steam is coming. So act early, act now on Monday. All right, we're putting on our basketball caps, switching gears here, bringing Jake back in. Before we get to the NBA picks, and I've been seeing a lot of questions in the chat, Jake has a great special college basketball parlay for us. First 2 states, very patriotic parlay here with Penn and Delaware.
Yeah, it's also the Stephen O parlay because it's Stevens College and Joe Flacco's college. So Delaware.
I started with the connection to Delaware. I used to go to Rehoboth quite a bit.
So it's Penn, Stevens College, and Joe Flacco at Delaware. So we have both the odds of the money line hitting for both teams at around 64%, which equates to -175. So you're getting really good value at +113. We've been pretty good at getting teams that are at -5 to -7 that we have value on the money line. So I like this play.
All right.
Go
Good stuff there. I saw Nick S. also has it in a parlay pen here, but with Yale, he's going a little Ivy League moment here. Good for him. Not
my brother went to Yale. Probably a closer connection than the Delaware one.
That's just the O parlay. Love to see it. Exactly. All right, let's hit some questions before we get into some of our props. We'll start with Keontae George over 4.5 assists here.
All right, let me see. Utah. We have 5.1 assists projected for him, so that's a pretty good value. And yeah, it's interesting. We actually have the under on his points, rebounds, and assists, but like the over in his assists. So that's got to be a good sign.
All right, Nick S. Always doing the thing. Always doing the thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Jake's pick here with OG. The Raptors going to New York. New York laying 4 here, but you still like Raptors prop.
Yeah, this was also before we knew Mitchell Robinson was out, and it might even be more value now. But points or ESPN bet, you get over 19.5 at just minus 125. This line is at minus 145, and a lot of books are getting value there, finding the best price. But OG Anunoby also has his career high 36 at MSG. So you know he likes playing at MSG. This is hit 4 of the last 5 games that he's played at MSG. So it's a favorable matchup. And then with Mitchell Robinson being out, Isaiah Hartenstein's not as good as a defender. So it clears the pain a little for him.
All right. Good stuff there. We'll head over to one of Steven's props. We've been on this a lot, so it's got to just start cashing. Lillard at home, over 28.5 points and rebounds, and he has been playing better at home this year.
Yeah, so over is 10-3 his last 13. So he's warming up. He's hit after a slow start from 3-point range. He's hit 12 of his last 22. Going back to last season, he averages 2.3 more points and rebounds at home. Obviously, that includes Portland, but maybe there's something to an older player not having to travel and everything else. So I'm going to apply it here. And so if you include his Portland stretch last year, the over is 33-10. Chicago's allowing plus 3% higher 3-point defensive field goal percentage on the road, 39%, which is a pretty high number. And Chicago, while they're a decent rebounding team at home, even on the boards, are -6 on the road. So I kind of like Lillard to get a couple long threes, long rebounds.
This is some of the best creativity I've seen in a really long time. Calling it the Ole. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I really hope this hits for you.
All
right, let's move on.
We'll never say it again.
Yeah, really. All right, let's move over to Dylan Brooks, over 1.5 made threes. Houston is hosting San Antonio tonight.
Yeah, the model line is 1.9. And it's so the juice is fairly high, minus 135, but I still like it at 1.9 projection. He's broke out of a 5-game shooting slump. And he's a few weeks ago, and he's on a nice 6-3 over run. Houston, I think they're just playing with total confidence. They just beat Denver on the road, unfortunately, because it cost me what I thought was a surefire point spread parlay with Boston the other day. But I think that Houston, obviously, they get fired up from their coach down to the individual players, the guys like Brooks. So they'll want to stomp the in-state rival with Wembanyama. It's like a kind of a personal thing for them. And the Spurs, they allow what I call a strikingly high 3-point percentage on the road, 42%. And Houston's shooting a nearly as high 39% at home. So Brooks, I think, is I'm expecting 2 threes in the first 5 minutes and then just turn off the TV if I want to.
Yeah. That's what we love to see. We love to cash early so then we can go to bed. All right, let's move to another game here, another West Coast game. Brooklyn, 5-point dogs in Sacramento, but we have Brooklyn winning this game by 2.
Yeah, the steam, there was at 5.5 on the consensus, and it's come down to as low as 4.5. So I think, you want to get 5 while you still can. Brooklyn, if you go back to last year, obviously Sacramento had a tremendous year, but this year alone, Brooklyn's actually been the better team. They're 12-9 straight up, 16-4 against the spread, which is a pretty high spread record after 20 games. And plus 4-point differential. And Sacramento's just 12-8, 11-9 against the spread, and a -1 point differential. Sacramento, while they score a lot more at home, they also allow plus 6 more at home, and they allow 38% 3-point shooting on their home court. Brooklyn, it's not sustainable, but they're shooting 42% on the road from threes, plus 5% better. So maybe they get distracted. Maybe the younger team gets distracted in New York at home, and you don't get distracted by the cows in Sacramento. That's actual cows. That's some kind of weird indictment on the population.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Brooklyn plus 5.
All right, let's hit one more prop here. We're going to an under lane, but whatever. I trust you, Jake. Herb Jones under 4.5 rebounds here. New Orleans is hosting Minnesota tonight.
Yeah, Minnesota's a good rebounding team. I like Herb Jones, but I think this is a tough matchup for him. He averages just 3.9 rebounds at home compared to 4.9 on the road. And that's not even considering that Trey Murphy's back and Zion, maybe he's goes off on the boards a little more because of all the criticism he got from the TNT guys the other day about being lazy. But even with not factoring those two things into account, we have a good value on his under, and this was a strong play using Odds Jam.
Okay. Yeah, love to finish this off with Odds Jam again. Great website to use. Helps us out a lot with looking at odds across the board. I think that's all the questions we can get to right now. Packed show, lots to go over. Again, pay attention to those Act Now Week 15 bets because this will probably be the best value you can get. So with that said, good luck with your bets tonight. Plenty more to go over tomorrow, and we'll see you guys there.